Father, we thank you for another episode where lives get to be transformed. We ask that as we talk and as we share these principles that would move in their hearts, give them answers that they need. And we thank you for an incredible moment together with everybody out there. In your name, amen. Let's get it.
If I call you bro, that means I love you, bro. That means I'll go to war with you.
Fire, baby.
The reason why you need to know your identity is because when you know who you are, people don't get to define it for you. So when I tell you guys who you have in your circle is important.
You're listening to the Bros to Men podcast with Cameron Persad, Jeff T. Osborne, and Roy Rand.
Yo, welcome to another episode of the Bros to Men podcast. Come on, fellas, what's happening?
What's happening?
Hey, listen, here on this podcast, we drop jewels. We give you content that inspires action. Our desire is that the end, whether you watch whatever episode it is, that you would be inspired to take action in your life to live a life by design and not default. It's nice, huh?
Hey, I like that.
I like that.
Fly, bro.
Yeah. Okay, so check this out. I'm excited for this episode. And fellas, I don't know if you had the chance to actually look at all of the responses from our last episode on Is God Mad at Me?
Man.
Like,
I was a little heavy.
That episode, it came off. I mean, we didn't know where it was going to go. We knew that was a topic, but the responses have been incredible. If you haven't watched that episode, it's our last episode.
Please tap
Is
in.
God mad at me? How do you navigate when you feel like God's least favorite person?
Oof.
Like, you dropped some jewels on that one, and y'all did too. Today,
What we got for him?
this episode, fellas, this one I'm excited for. I'm always excited for all of them, but this one is huge. You ready?
Come on.
Okay. As you guys know, they don't know what the topic is, but beforehand, we don't talk about it. We don't have no outline. I think of some, Cam will think of some, Dips will think of some, and then we just have a raw conversation about lessons that we've learned, things that we learned through these topics that help us go from just bros, young men, losing it, making bad decisions, failing, to becoming the men we are today. And so here's a topic for today. You ready?
Let's go.
We're going to title this podcast episode, What's the Price? What is the price?
What's it gonna cost you?
What's it going to cost? I'm gonna preference this.
Yeah.
Because we started having a conversation of what does it take to become successful? What does it take to hit goals? What does it take to hit marks in our life? And we started asking the question, and I started asking the question really is, what are some of the biggest mistakes that we make when it comes to trying to pursue dreams, goals, visions, trying to elevate? And through that, the biggest thing that I could think of is sometimes what stops us, or many times what stops us from being successful, hitting levels, becoming successful in your marriage, as a parent, in business, in your job, in schooling, is we don't know the price it takes to get the dream and the vision that we want to have. So let's talk about it. Let's open the floor on the idea that everything in life comes at a price and it's going to cost you something. Yeah. What is your thoughts? And I'll fire this off and start off with you, Dips, in this episode, is what is your thought on paying the cost, the cost to be the boss?
Man, that's one of my mom's favorite quotes. She used to tell me all the time when I was a kid, it pays the cost to be the boss. And I didn't understand it as a kid, but now that I'm older, I understand it fully.
So help us understand that. Yeah.
Because we all have these goals. I want to lose weight. I want to make more money. I want to get this job. I want to inspire and instruct 1 billion people to live better lives through these podcasts and the things that we're doing. But what does it really take to get there? How much time does it take? How much work does it take? How much work do you have to put in and day out? What habits do I need to have? What habits do I need to get rid of? And at the end of the day, you always got to pay more than you thought you had to pay.
Ooh, that part.
Yo.
You always got to pay more than you thought you had to pay.
Talk.
The math
about
always
that.
comes out just a little off.
Hey, what do they say? The math ain't mathing?
The math ain't happening. Like, I messed it up somewhere.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I talk about in my book, The Victory Equation, this thing called lead measures.
Okay.
And what a lead measure is basically a habit that is going to guarantee you a result, also known as a lag measure. And so a lead measure for losing weight is calories, right? We all know that you need to burn more calories than you eat. Like it's really that simple. And then the lag measure is the weight. But we focus on the result, the weight, the money, rather than the price it's going to take.
Ooh,
The lead measure, the things that we're going to have to do, and the time that we're going to have to do them. It could take months, it could take years, it could take decades. And I think we overthink what we could do in a year. We think we can do more than we can, but we underthink what we could do in a decade. And I think when it comes to paying the price, we have to figure out how to manage time.
Yeah.
I think time management is the key, and also energy management.
Okay.
And ask ourselves truthfully, are we willing to pay this price day in and day out for the next decade, the next 20 years, the next 30 years? And if you ain't,
Okay,
might be time to hang it up.
Might be time to okay, you said something that I love that you said, and I think there's a lot more weight. And so I want to weigh on this, Cam. When you hear Dips talk about time, you said, man, you underestimate what you can, you overestimate what you can do in a year, and you underestimate what you can do in a decade. And you said most of the times the price that most of us get off, or the math that doesn't math, is time. Cam, talk about time. Talk about when it comes to pursuing dreams, visions, goals. I mean, you had goals. Did you have goals when you were younger, and a time frame that you had when you wanted to accomplish that?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, and then you realize that your math was a little off.
Yeah.
wait. How did you know your math was off? Like, what is that? What does that look like?
Well, I think the first part is that when you're young, you don't take into account the unexpected things that can happen in life.
Yeah.
You know, like people get married, people have kids, people get relationships, people have delays and health issues. Things happen in life that you did not take into account when you were putting your vision board together, right? So I think that's one of the first things that throws off those time frames. And then I think as you get older, you realize, okay, if I spend money on something and I lose money, I can make the money back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if I try a business endeavor, or I pursue one dream and that doesn't work out, I can shift it to plan B, or I can realize I'm not as passionate as I thought I was about that, and I'm more passionate about something else. You can switch gears. But to Dip's point, time is one of those things that when it's gone, it's gone. Time is one of those things you cannot necessarily borrow more of.
Okay.
And I think you realize very quickly, out of all your resources, time is probably your most valuable. So what I've learned over the years, that the more yeses that you put out, it also increases the more no's that you have to put out elsewhere. So if I'm saying yes to all these business meetings, and I'm saying yes to more podcast dates, and I'm saying yes to, let's sit down and have lunch and catch up. Well, the people who are most important in my life, or other people in my life, are asking me to commit to things, and I have to give them more no's because I've said more yeses over here. So when we say that everything will cost you something, it's going to cost you either a relationship, it's going to cost you more no's to the people that you love, it's going to cost you maybe more money elsewhere. And I think you also, Dips could probably touch on this, when you read on business and you follow these entrepreneurs, what is their biggest investment, right? When they start making money, the one thing that they always try to buy back is their time. When you ask people, why do you own a private jet? Well, because I don't want to spend hours in an airport, so I can just get a jet. I can go from blah, 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 right? Well, why do you have an assistant? Because instead of spending 12 hours a week managing my calendar and balancing this and making phone calls and doing cold outreach, I just have my assistant do it. Therefore, I bought back that time. So time is something that I think becomes the biggest resource and your most valuable resource.
I think it's interesting when we talk about time, because that's so true. When we start off, oftentimes we get this vision of life, we get this vision of building the company, and it's supposed to happen overnight. I remember I wanted to be I knew for sure I was gonna be a multimillionaire by the age of 22.
Right. Yeah.
Like you couldn't tell me nothing different. Like ain't nobody like I'm on the stage with Les Brown. I've already preached at Uncle TD's conferences, Mega Fest, probably like on my third year in a row, which means I probably started at 19 when I was hitting these.
Yeah.
I'm coaching and standing there up next to Tony Robbins and you know that's all gonna happen by the age of 22. And then when 22 hit and I was at the EBT food stamp line, I was like, wait, this math ain't mathing right now.
What's going on?
Like this vision of where I'm at isn't mathing right now.
Yeah.
And I think that is so huge when you talk about that is one of the prices that we have to pay to be able to do what we need to do or to become who we're becoming is time.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it you being able to manage your time, but having a proper expectation of how long something is going to take for you to get to where you need to be. Like that time, like I'm 37 years old now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've been speaking now for over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I am just now getting to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm standing in these circles, I'm standing in these doorways. And I think that what happens is in the process of looking at time, we underestimate what we can do in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, if I don't hit all of these goals by the time this age has happened, I'm a failure.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that we rush is how long it's going to take us to be able to develop the skills that are needed to be able to stand in that space. And so now at 37, I'm looking at my life and I'm so grateful that God didn't allow me to have what I thought I wanted at 22, because I would have destroyed myself and that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Talk about, Dips, what it looks like when you ask God to give you something, and let's just say you started speaking at TED Talk, and you were, how old were you when you spoke at TED Talk?
Like 27.
27. And up to that time, how long had you been pursuing this journey of growth?
I remember being at a TED Talk at the Claremont Colleges and sitting in the audience with my girlfriend at the time, like, yo, I'm gonna do a TED Talk. You know what I mean? And that was like at 2021. I'm gonna do a TED Talk, and she over there like, yeah, all right, like you gonna get up there. But I think one thing that needs to be pointed out is, yeah, it takes time to build those habits, to learn how to talk, to read, to deal with the anxiety of getting up there and deal with the nerves. And that might take 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, forever. We're steadily getting better, right? I'm reading Storyworthy right now on how to tell a better story. I'm in my craft trying to figure out how I can master it, developing mastery. But then there's also, you do get good. And I'm gonna just say this right now. I'm sitting next to the best speaker out there.
That part. Come on.
Then it takes more time for everybody else to figure it out.
Yeah.
Then it takes more time for God to give you those eyeballs and really show the world what you can do. And even though we did kind of rush, YP, right?
Yeah.
Young and prosperous, we wanted to do it when we were young. That desire instilled in us the discipline to start doing the habits. And when we didn't get to where we wanted to go, we didn't quit, you know? It was 25, 26. I think I did my first talk at 25. And I remember being like super nervous, and I delivered it. And then I was like, all right, cool. That's what that felt like. All right, I'm looking at the game film. All right, I gotta move more. I gotta get out my body. I need to tell a better story. And then moving forward, a lot of times, tiny sprouts don't need too much sun. You know, you don't want that platform until you're ready for it.
Boy, that'll
Man,
preach.
I am big on that. Like,
What?
Cam always says, don't let your gifts
hit
take
you with it. I had to hit you with it, dog.
Don't let your gifts take you to a place your character can't keep you. And it's not just character, it's skills. Don't let your gifts take you to a place your skills can't keep you. And so at the end of the day, you're going to get your time. I tweeted this probably like a week ago. I said, God's going to put you in those hallways with those people that you want to be in the hallways with. We're going to see who's who.
Yeah.
Just be patient, keep working, keep praying, and eventually
You're going to get there.
You're gonna get
pay
there.
that price.
Show up.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So if we're talking about one of the prices that you have to pay, if you're tuning in, we're talking about what is the price. In other words, everything in life costs you something. And one of the things we talked about is becoming great or getting to the place where you want to go. A price that people overlook is the price of time, paying the price of time. Cam, when we talk about time, what does time do for a person in that waiting period? If somebody feels like time is a nemesis, like time is the enemy right now, I need this to hurry up.
Yeah.
What is some of the things that can happen, or why is time even beneficial? And why do you think, even for us, we believe that God allows you to wait sometimes? And so what is the benefit of something not coming quick and it taking time to develop?
So I'm going to answer the first part, and I'm going to say what happens during that time depends on what you choose to do at that time.
Ooh, okay.
You know what I mean? So
Okay.
we always talk about what can happen if you're doing the work during that time, right? But there's a flip side to that coin as well. And what can happen if you mismanage that time, or what can happen if you do the wrong things with that time? Because those produce results as well. We always talk about, the positive results and the desirable results. But let's talk about when you take that God-given time that you could be working on your craft and that you can be working, you could be getting focused and your head down, you're perfecting, that craft that you want to present to the world. But what happens if you're doing the opposite things? Because the opposite holds true as well. What happens if when you're hanging around the wrong people, right? What happens when you're being influenced by the wrong people? What happens when you're allowing the naysayers to say that thing that you're pursuing isn't obtainable? That's not for you. This would mean you're going to be a public speaker. You ain't never spoken in front of a classroom. Now you want to get on a stage and talk at TED? Right? So what happens when you spend that time in the wrong places? So yes, we take into account the time and what time can produce if you're focusing and working on your craft. But what happens when we invest it not wisely? Do we take into account those repercussions?
Wow.
Because I think that needs to be factored in as well. What about the time, or are you willing to risk and gamble what the potential results can be if you're mismanaging the God-given time that you have?
Yeah.
What if it ends up in a jail cell? What if it ends up missing your window? What happens if you put the work in, the opportunity, you're not putting the work in, the opportunity presents itself, and you're not ready to step into it?
That's scary.
Let's talk about that.
Boy.
Because that's also very probable and realistic, right? People love to talk about all these great things that can come if you spend your time wisely and put the time in. And if you invest your time wisely, yeah. But there's a flip side to that coin as well, right? And there's some stories that we can share about, ending up incarcerated because hanging out with the wrong people, or going to parties when you should have been putting in the work and the party gets shot up, or you're using your idle time to invest in the wrong person. You end up in this toxic relationship that produces nothing but terrible results.
Right.
So time management is more than just putting it into the right things and being focused and putting your head down, which I think is just as important to explore and discuss as well, because you should also know where you shouldn't invest as much as you know where you should be investing.
If time is the commodity that we have, it's the one thing that you never get more of. It's something that you can't go back in time and get more time.
And you never know when you run out of it.
And you never know when you're going to run out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know when your next breath is. We just lost one of our closest friends, John Willie. And he was 37 years old. I mean, the dude was the funniest person we ever met in our life.
So full of life.
Like, full of life, impacting people, doing videos, goes in for a surgery, and something happens, goes wrong, and he ends up losing his life off of something that was simple, right?
Yep.
And when we talk about this idea of time, you said, man, make the most of it because you never know how much of it you have left. My question is in the process of looking at that time, how do we honor time? How do you honor the time that you've been given? We call him Uncle TD just because we feel like we know him, but that's the Bishop TD Jakes, right? But he always says that your downtime is your prep time. We quote that statement all the time.
Yep.
My brothers used to tell me, yo, I stay ready so I don't have to get ready. And regardless of what that is, that time is preparation time for us to be able to build that gifting, to be able to understand who we are. And so sometimes time can work for us or time can work against us if you don't understand the process and the price of what it takes for you to become great.
Yeah.
Like when we look at this idea of time, and we're going to move on to the next thing because you said something, I think it was an incredible segue of what you talked about, but paying the price of time and understanding and recognizing that the thing that you want to have is going to take time. And I remember Nadia telling me I was frustrated because I'd been in this thing when I was doing it probably 10 years. I mean, pursuing this idea of wanting to motivate, wanting to inspire. I was doing God Morning back when nobody knew my name.
Yeah.
I was doing all of this, right? And I got upset with Nadia. I was like, man, how come God's not giving it to me now? Like, yo, I'm ready now. And she said something. She says, well, listen, baby, I want you to look at your life like it's a vase, okay? If you have a vase that you want to be created, you can go to Walmart and you can pick up a vase that is mass produced. You can go pick it right off and it won't cost you much. And you can have it instantly. She says, but then if there's a vase that you're getting that's customized from an artist.
Yep. It's about the value.
That vase is going to take longer and it's going to cost you more because you're asking for something that's one of a kind. And I don't know who needs to hear this. I don't know who's listening to this right now, but you need to understand that you're getting frustrated because of how long it's taking. But the reality is what you asked God for was a customized, one-of-a-kind lifestyle and blessing. And you can't try to go to the Walmarts of life to try to get something that's a mass-produced lifestyle if what you're asking God for is something that's one of a kind.
1,000%.
Like, that's real. You got to know.
We're not asking for a one-size-fits-all here.
What? What? Talk about it. And so I think that's the biggest thing that we got to look at is the time that it's taken is preparing you for who you are. I remember DJ Khaled said this. He goes, I didn't make my first hit until I was 39. Like I didn't make my first hit until I was 39 years old. And here we are thinking that if we didn't make our millions by 25, we're a failure in life.
Yep.
You ain't been married, you haven't been married and you're already 25, people got family and kids. You feel like you've missed it. Why do you think we rush time so much?
Because we want it so bad. It's that desire.
Instant gratification.
Instant gratification. But anything that takes time that you do daily and day in and day out, it sticks. And a lot of people don't have stickability. They can't stick with it over time because if I'm reading a staple right now. I just finished reading Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. He talks about how everything that people do is tied to pain or pleasure. And he says, if you want to make lasting change, you need to tie pain into the future of if you don't do this thing that you said you were going to do, that future is going to be bad. You need to tie the pain into the future instead of the pain of doing the discipline right now. Because you're going to feel one or two planes, right? We all know that. You're going to feel the pain of regret, which is heavy, or the pain of discipline, which is light. And so Cam talked about managing time badly. And I could tell you what failure is. Failure is daily bad decisions accumulated over time. That's all it is.
Wait, say that again. Failure is
daily bad habits accumulated over time.
So repeatedly making bad habits.
Repeatedly doing the things you know you shouldn't be doing. You can't say I'm gonna go speak on those stages and then you ain't reading, you ain't working on your talking, you ain't talking to people.
Wait, talk to him.
Right, and they got the audacity to think your blow up is coming.
You know what I mean? My time is coming. And
shots fired. Jim's got shots fired.
You know what I'm saying? Faith without works
is dead.
Dead.
I love that. That's huge.
Man, that's crazy. So I think
Let it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to. It's because like I'm reflecting on my own ignorance sometimes, and the lessons that I had to learn, and ultimately pursuing the things that I wanted to accomplish. And what has taken me almost 37 years to learn is that there is an ugly process in every process.
Man.
Boy.
There is an ugly process in every process.
Yep.
When you grow your hair out,
Talk about it.
Yep.
Come on, Cam.
right?
Yep.
There's that ugly phase. It was like, dog,
What you doing up there?
it ain't laying down, but it ain't long enough to braid. It's sticking up. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Bruh. I know it, dog.
Where you like when I do wearing that hat every day, all day, because
Yeah.
he knows like I'm not getting hair because I'm wolfing, right?
Yep.
It's I'm trying to get that hairline. There's that ugly process, bro, in everything, and I don't care what process we associate it to. When it comes to the gym, there's that process where like you're putting on muscle, you're starting to look good, and then you plateau.
Yeah.
And you're hitting it every day, but you see no results, right? And the vets are like, bro, just hang with it, just hang with it, just hang with it. So to me, that ugly phase is like where 90% of the people quit.
Ooh, that's good. Talk
So
about
are you
it.
willing to commit to the ugly phase
Yeah.
to hope that you'll get the beauty? Because the thing is that we don't know how long it's gonna take for our hair to get to that.
That's the lag.
Come on now, man. Right? How long am I have to go to the gym until I get the results? I keep working. So are you willing to commit when your business doesn't have any clients, you're not making money, but you've invested money already, right? Now I'm in the red. Are you willing to commit when the hair is ugly and you got to go through 3 months of jokes because you can't get it right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are you willing to commit when everyone's laughing at you because you're just talking, but you're not producing the results? You have to commit to the ugly part. And if you're not willing to commit to the ugly part, that stickability that Dips is talking about,
yeah.
you'll never get through that.
Never
part.
get it.
You'll never get it.
And I think sometimes we don't even want to commit to the ugly because we're too busy trying to look good.
That's where I was about to go. We don't commit to the ugly because we're not willing to admit that we
ain't got it all together.
We ain't got it together.
It's looking bad. It's looking ugly right now. My finances are ugly right now. The way my clientele is looking right now is ugly. The way that my bank account is set up, there's a checking and the savings.
Yeah.
Like it's looking real ugly right now. And I think we talked about it too. I think we would rather floss
Mm-hmm.
and make it seem like we got it all together than actually be flourishing. So we're too busy trying to floss instead of flourish. I want to look like I'm keeping up with the Joneses. I want to look like this person who's been doing what they're doing and they've been in there. So you go into these rooms where you're trying to match these people who've been doing it for 30 years. And you're upset because you don't have what they have. You're not driving what they're driving. You don't have the influence that they have. But I love what you said, Cam, is you got to commit to the ugly. Anybody who had an amazing story of success had an amazing ugly phase.
Ooh, that part.
And sometimes I think that because we don't want to go through the ugly because we're trying to look good.
to get roasted.
We don't want to get roasted. You're actually missing out on the things that can actually give you growth. So you want to wrap yourself up in all these fajas, ladies,
You're right.
so that you look good in your clothing, all these little butt pads that they got.
Yeah.
And then when it comes moment for you to be transparent and vulnerable with that man that you're supposed to be with, now you recognize you've been a fraud this whole time. You ain't got all the stuff that you said was yours, the hair that you said was yours. You ain't got all these things. Or vice versa. You got fellas wearing fajas. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo. And the reality is in the same way I'm saying that, but the reality is we put on all these things to make us look good, but there comes a moment where you can't fake the craft.
You can't fake it.
There comes a moment where you got to actually put up or shut up. There comes a moment where you're going to be vulnerable in that ugly phase to be able to get through it. So how do you get through the ugly phase?
That's what I was just about to ask you.
How do you navigate that?
Because I'm literally going through that right now. So this is kind of coaching me. It's like, yo, I'm mad because I don't have the money to put towards this. Yo, I want to run this. I want to up my outreach on this, but that's going to cost 2-3G. This, and that. Then I started looking at my bills like, I don't really need to live there. I don't really need to drive that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you
Am I willing to
sacrifice?
take
Yeah.
a step back and look like I ain't got it so that I can really go do and
So you can
build
really
what
have
I really
it.
want to do so I
Yeah.
can really have it.
Okay, wait, pause right there. So then I just heard a second piece to a price that has to be paid
Mhm.
for you to get what you want. You just said it's called sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Talk about sacrifice, Dips, because that's a price you got to pay. And do many people want to pay the price, or are they willing to pay the price of sacrifice? Or better yet, what is sacrifice?
It's taking that L
Mhm.
to get the W that you really want. And it's not even really an L. It's just a perceptual
L means what?
loss.
Okay.
Like
Not just taking it, but taking it in public.
my dad teaches this thing called shin angles when you want to slide left to left faster or change direction faster. And one of the things he teaches is if you're standing up straight and you want to propel forward, what's the first thing you got to do? Take a step back.
Mm.
Then
That
you
momentum.
can push forward.
The momentum.
If you just take off running like that, you're not going to be able to really propel the way that you want to. So a lot of us are not willing to take that step back
Mhm.
because we have a lifestyle that we're not willing to give up.
Boy. Now hold on. I'm gonna take a minute real quick because you just said something, and everybody in this audience knows that we always have our producer weigh in. We got Solomon with us. This our guy Solomon, man. This is my man, our man with the master plan. Solomon, when you hear this idea, even what Dips just shared right now about having to take a step back before you can move forward, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's absolutely true. And then, as you guys know, I come at this stuff from an entrepreneurial standpoint, me being here owning this studio. And I resonate with everything you say because you start talking about the ugly phase, when you go through a December when nobody's booking because everybody's going, oh, Solomon, we'll see you next year.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, we're going for holiday.
yeah.
And I'm looking at the rent needs to be paid, electric bills need to be paid, all these things need to keep happening. And this is sort of what it is for me. And so I've had to take multiple steps back, but then you start the new year with, okay, how am I going to propel? So then now I'm taking money I don't have to put into building brochures and going out and getting in the community.
Yeah.
That's my step back to propel forward because, I'm sticking with it. So I definitely agree with it.
Stickability.
That's it.
Stickability. So you talking about this idea of sacrifice, and I love that, Solomon, how you talked about that. You'll have to invest in something to be able to do that. And part of investing means that it requires sacrifice. Am I right, Cam?
Absolutely.
So what do you have to sacrifice? When you think of sacrifice, what does sacrifice look like for you? We heard it from Dips, like you got to take a step back, but what does sacrifice look like for you?
I think sacrifice can look like being uncomfortable along with maybe realizing that maybe you're not the person you thought you were. That maybe you have to go do some soul work and do some soul searching and acknowledge that maybe there's some areas that you need to rebuild. Maybe there's some areas that you need to be a student in for a while, right? And I think, Dips brought up a good point. And I think a lot of times when you have a platform, and it can be a business, it could be social media, or you can just be someone maybe who just has influence in a circle of friends, right? I think without even being intentional about it, you kind of develop this persona, meaning that people just automatically view you as a certain way, and maybe it's just in your family. Maybe you're just the go-to person. But we got issues, we have conflict. Jeff's the person that gets us out of it. He has the resolution. He's going to put up the financial resources, whatever it is. And sometimes the biggest sacrifice is having to tell your family, I'm not the person you think I am.
Oh,
I don't have the finances you think I have. I'm in a situation right now where I am not the person of strength and the person of a solid foundation that you have viewed me as for the last 15, 20 years. I'm in a rebuilding phase. In my own personal experiences, I battled my health situation for 4 years in silence before I even told people what I was going through. And a big part of that was because I knew it was going to change my identity. And to change your identity at 33 years old is tough. because I was always this person that was in a leadership role. I was always this kind of go-to person. I was always the cool, calm, collected person. And I had to tell people, I'm scared to death right now. I don't have that calm persona that you think I've had the last 5 years because I'm just battling day to day. So it wasn't even just the putting the story out there, but putting the scars out there. You know, it was putting a persona out there that didn't have it all together. And that was tough because when people begin to view you as someone who always has the answers, who always has the calmness, whoever has the peace, or it's always such a pretty package, right? And you remove the bow and you remove the ribbons, you start pulling back the layers, and now there's scars, and now there's uncertainties, and now there's unknowns. That takes you to a place that you've never been in before. And I think a very difficult part of being vulnerable and making those sacrifices is introducing that new phase of life that you're in, that new chapter of life. Is very difficult to share when it's so different from what you've always put out there in the past.
I think that's so huge because that is a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that's a scary sacrifice that you got to make.
It's a death.
It's a death.
Identity death.
That's a, bruh, come on.
It is.
Yeah. You own it. I think your new self is going to cost you the death of your old self.
That part.
And I think we underestimate the price of transformation. When we talk about, I just want to get better, better is just a different variation of who you used to be. But the goal of life is to be transformed into something you've never been. And so when we talk about transformation, that's not a different variation of who you are. That's a completely new person. So I think one of the prices that we underestimate is that your new life and your new self is going to cost you your old self. It's going to cost you the things that you were raised up in. It's going to cost you the conversations that you've been telling yourself that justify you staying in a place that you are in right now. Like, how many people don't get to where they want to go because they're trying to move into a new season with an old mindset? Right? We're trying to move into a new season with old relationships, new seasons with old ways of thinking, new seasons with old habits, and not recognizing that the new you who has to live is going to require the old you to be able to die. And that's a sacrifice that we don't want to make.
That's so good, man. I think one thing is too, is, we talk about this perception on social media. And I think what's really tough about social media is that you never see the journey, you see the final result. So what's interesting is that I have so much respect for folks who share the journey of some of the most difficult things they're going through in life. Like when people are sick, when people have cancer, when people are showing a challenging pregnancy, when people are showing you their journey of building a business from the beginning. The reason why I salute these people so much is because they have a hopeful end result, but it's not for certain that they're going to reach it. So when you have these people online who just show you, oh, look, I was successful and I'll make 7 figures and I have this home and I have this beautiful family, but they don't show you the hopes and the prayers and the maybes and the sleepless nights. And I couldn't feed my family and my family ate and I went to bed hungry because I didn't have the resources, right? That is real vulnerability. When it's like when you're sharing the unknown results. And I think for me, that's why it was so tough. And even my own medical journey was because I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. Yeah, I prayed for it. Yeah, I worked for it. Yeah, I hoped for it. And I was confident that I was ultimately going to reach, that healthy lifestyle.
Yep.
But it's like, do you invite someone into something that's the unknown? And I think that's the challenging part. And I think that's what's challenging about relationships, because a lot of times you might have a partner who says, I need you to tell me without any doubt if we invest in this, it's going to be successful. I can't give you that promise. I can't give you that guarantee. But what I can give you is my passion, my commitment, my work. I'm going to show up every day and build this thing. But that is, I think, the hard part. And I think when we talk about having to share that journey with folks, and maybe we could touch on that a little bit too for those people out there who are entrepreneurs and trying to build something. I mean, Jeff, how do you, I don't want to say convince, but how do you share a dream when the outcome, the desired outcome isn't guaranteed? Is that a situation where it's like, that's how you know when you're with the right person or maybe not with the right person? I don't know. But I think what's important to stress is that it's okay not to know. But like this kind of means you got to do the work. You got to take the actions, right? So I don't know if that's something we can go into a little bit. We're kind of running low on time, but how do we take action on things? Maybe I'll sum it up this way. How do we take that action when there's uncertainty that we're going to reach that finish line? And it's costing us so much to take the first step, right? When people open up businesses and they wipe out their savings account, I'm praying on it. I'm hoping. I'm convincing the wife this is what we're going to do. This is what's going to lead us to financial freedom. How? When I see depleting the little that we have in hopes that we're going to get to the finish line, and I can't guarantee those results.
I think there are dumb risk and there's smart risk.
Mm-hmm. Is it just purely financial, or is it like knowing that there's something inside of you that's going to produce?
Oh, let me tell you straight up. In my book, Buy the Dang Coffee, the idea I talk about is one sip is worth the risk. One sip of success is worth the risk that it takes to get there. But in that also, it's about taking calculative risk. In other words, I am not the most incredible singer in the world.
Yeah.
And I may have the passion for singing, but if there is no fruit in that area of singing, there's no need to put investment in the area where you're not bearing any fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk about that, it's understanding and being real with yourself. And part of you being successful is going to cost you. One of the prices you have to pay is the price of honesty.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me you're going to invest our last $50,000 into your music career, but you ain't got no open doors. You ain't got there's no backup. There's no support around what you're doing, but you're going to invest all of this into that. That's not a smart decision or a smart risk to be able to make. When we talk about making risk, a risk means that you're going to come out of your comfort zone and it's going to cost you something, but you have fruit and there's a gifting that you've developed in that area. Most people want to invest so much into an area that you haven't developed yet. You haven't shown any proof yet. You haven't put any work into that area. So I think it's actually recognizing, okay, is this investment going to yield a return? And what determines the return is the gifting that you have in that area. It's the ability for you to say, you know what, I'm really good at this. Or you've seen God. The Bible says out of 2 or 3 witnesses, a thing is established. If you the only person who believes you got a good voice, you got to give it up, bruh.
You need the majority.
Yeah, you got to do it because it's going to be established in a multitude of witnesses. People are going to say, yo, look, I love what you're doing, Cam. Yo, keep going. Yo, I love what you're doing, Dips. Keep going. You're getting results in those areas, so you know how to be able to invest those things. And so I think part of an investment for us to be successful is not only an investment in time, but you have to invest in yourself being vulnerable, like you said, to get honest feedback.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that honest feedback is going to be a price that you have to be able to pay for them to be able to tell you, no, you got some more work to do. Because there's a verse in the Bible that says that many, or what does it say? Many are the wounds, or faithful are the wounds of a friend, and many are the kisses of an enemy. And so the one thing that you're going to have to sacrifice is having a moment of you having to be vulnerable and ask people on their opinion, saying, yo, look, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And get enough people around you to be able to say, yo, look, you've got something here. You've got some wisdom. Now, not everybody's going to believe in what you have, but you got to show a moment of vulnerability to be able to say, like, yo, look, I put this work in here. There's fruit on this tree. And the people who don't care about you going to tell you, yeah, dog, go for it. You got this. Well, yeah, if it comes between me paying my rent or investing in this studio time, which one you going to choose? I think there has to be a level of wisdom when it comes to taking risks so that they're not stupid risk, but you're taking wise choices and decisions based on fruit that you have.
I love that because it makes me wonder how many people miss out on potential breakthroughs because they're afraid to put themselves out there and get the negative feedback.
Bruh, Pastor Diego said this. I asked him one time, I said, how do you know somebody's called? At this moment, I was about to start being a pastor. And I said, how do you know if somebody's called to be a lead pastor? And his response to me was somebody, not a pastor to this day has ever answered this way. He says, when every ministry that are a part of grows.
Wow. So there's results everywhere they go.
There's results everywhere you go. You in parking lot ministry, you got everybody in there
Yeah.
like hitting the parking lot, like
Yeah,
killing it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You got children's ministry, the kids are loving you and it's growing. You're in media ministry, it's growing, right? And this is the ministry side of it. But when every aspect of your calling that you're called to begins to flourish, you know you're in your sweet spot. But if there's no growth in where you're at, there's a level of honesty that's going to require out of you a price that you're going to have to pay to be able to get to the level where you want to be. And that's the big game changer.
Growth.
It's growth.
And, you know, you have status people, you have growth people. Status people they reach a level of success and then they want to hold on to that identity. They want to be looked at by all of their peers that way. And then you have growth people. And when you're growing, you always are going to step, because there's levels. You're going to step to a level where you used to be the best, now you're trash, right? I was the best in high school, then I got to college, and I'm getting worked and practiced by seniors. Then you reach that level to where you're the best in college, and you go to the league, and you have to figure out the speed, and you're getting worked by pro players. So there's levels, and when you have a growth mindset, you have to be okay with going into a room and being trash until you figure it out.
Boy, talk
love that,
about
Tips.
that,
I love
dude.
that. You have to be okay with not being the best.
Exactly. And if you have that ego to where you just always want to be the best, a lot of times you won't even come around the people who are better than you to grow, and you'll stay
You're
at this
ducking that
level just so
competition.
you could be the best.
Yeah.
Right? You're ducking. And I think you just need to have faith in your growth and understand that God will pull you through, because you know deep down what you want to grow in and what you're willing to go through to get to. And who was Isaac's father?
Abraham.
Abraham. Jeff, I think you preached this. You talked about how Abraham took Isaac to the mountain to where God was going to sacrifice Isaac, right?
Abraham had to sacrifice. Isaac was the promise that God gave to Abraham. And one day God tells Abraham, I want you to get up and I want you to take Isaac up to the top of the mountain, and I want you to sacrifice your son and give him to me.
Yeah.
This was his promise that he had.
Yeah.
Now, when you preach this, and this still sticks in my mind, there's a small verse in there that I've never heard a pastor talk about this. But when Abraham's wife asked them where they were going, Abraham said, I'm going to take Isaac to the top of the mountain and pray. He said, we'll be back.
Boy.
God told him to go sacrifice Isaac, but he told his wife, we will be back. That's like a balance of unshakable faith, but at the same time, I'm still walking the direction that God wants me to go. And so if you just stay in your pocket and don't be afraid to get in rooms where you can grow, eventually you're going to pay that price, you're going to pay that cost, and time, daily good habits and growth, it's going to equal your success.
I love that.
Okay, so there's a thing that I want you guys to talk on real briefly. I'm going to start off, but I want us to think of something that comes to a lie that people tell us, or a lie that we accept when it comes to growth or paying a price that isn't true. And so here's a lie that I'll start off with, and then I want you guys to share one lie, and then we're gonna close this episode out and really help somebody. One of the lies that I believed when it came to being able to pay the price of becoming great in your space or stepping into what God has called you to do, or your destiny, or your business, or becoming great, was the idea that other visionary leaders are going to believe the same way you believe about your dream. The reason why this was the biggest thing that I realized is because there was a season where I had a visionary leader in my life, and I shared a dream about who I wanted to be and who God was calling me to be. And that leader did not believe in that same vision. And I was so crushed because I put so much weight on this person to validate who I was. And it wasn't until God began to speak to me. He says, sometimes visionary leaders don't have the vision big enough to maintain the lifestyle that I've called you to live. And if you're not careful, you're going to put your dreams in the hand of other leaders. And when they say no, you're not good enough. Even though your fruit is there, it could be an insecurity on their side. you'll discredit what it is. And so I had to recognize that there's a season, and the price that you're going to have to pay is you're going to have to look dumb in front of people for a season because you're the only one who believes in that dream for that time being. And so that was a lie that was told to me that, oh, other visionary leaders are going to get it. Now, there are some visionary leaders who are visionaries for their dream, but it doesn't mean that they have the vision for your dream. And God's going to place somebody in your life that's going to believe the same way that you're going to believe.
I love that, bro. I think one time we even said that sometimes when you get that call in your life, it's not always a conference call, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you get that one-on-one call. So, if it's not a conference call, it's not for everyone else to get. They didn't get that download. So sometimes you got to take what was given to you and run with that. I love that. For me, I would say that the lie of if you're in your vein or you're in your sweet spot, it's gonna come easy. I think it comes back to kind of what this was talking about, that stickability. I don't think because it's not coming with minimum effort or because it's not just landing on your lap that you're not operating where you should be.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you have to stick with it when it doesn't feel comfortable to ultimately get to those blessings.
I love that. Dips, what about you, my man?
I think for me, it's you can't achieve that goal. Like, that's too far. That's way too out there for a ashy, big tooth black kid from Gardena. Right?
Oh,
That's way too out there.
Talk about it.
There's no unrealistic goals. There's only unrealistic time frames.
Ooh,
boy.
Yeah.
And so once I realized that, and I realized if I do the work over years, decades, multiple decades maybe, if I say I am something and they say you're not that, they're right. But the moment in the future when I am that, I was right that whole time.
Love that.
And so at the end of the day, I'm not trying to prove nobody wrong. I'm just trying to prove you little young Roy right. That's all it is.
Trying to prove young Roy right. There's something that I put in on Instagram, and I think it talks to this price. And it says, when it comes to paying the price, understand that everybody has a different price to pay. What you paid to get to where you are, what you paid to get to where you are, where I paid to get to where I am, not everybody has to pay the same price because everybody is not called to the same vision and to the same thing. And so one of the prices that we also have to pay is recognizing that we're not in competition with anybody else. That's something that is huge. And I wrote this down. Your competition isn't someone else. Your competition is the attitude, habits, discipline, and choices you make on a daily basis.
Love that, bro. Yeah.
And these are the things that I think are going to differentiate us in where we're going in this next year. We're still at the beginning of this brand new year, fellas. Like, we still at the beginning of our journey and we haven't even got there. But please believe, y'all, that we're paying prices to sit here in this chair. We're paying price to do this. And just because somebody makes it look easy doesn't mean they haven't paid a price to get
You don't
there.
know the sacrifices behind it.
Yeah.
You don't know. So being able to have that and have a proper assessment. The Bible says this. There's a story that says, you will end up looking, I'm paraphrasing this, that a man will end up looking dumb and look like you didn't think things through because you didn't count the cost to build. What type of man wants to build and doesn't first count the cost that it takes to be able to do it? And I think sometimes we have a greater desire for the end result, like you said, than what the price is that it's going to help us get to where it needs to go. So as you guys think about this episode, as you guys begin to dial into your life, I want you to count the cost. We want you to count the cost. First, decide, I want to be blank. I want to have blank. I want to experience this in my marriage. I want to experience this as a parent. I want to experience this in my field, in my schooling, whatever it is, and then count the cost of what it's going to take. And one of the great ways to kind of give you just an overview is find somebody who's in that arena and ask the question, not how long did it take you to get there? Ask them, what did it cost you to get there?
Yeah.
And those questions would be able to shift you from where you need to be in your life. Dips, we started this episode off with paying the cost to be the boss. If you had to leave the people in this episode with one phrase, one word, one hope line, whatever it is, what would it be, bro?
It's worth it.
Woo!
It's worth it. If you put in the days, put in the thoughts, put in the hours, put in the pain of the discipline, when you get out on the other side, I've never regretted putting in no work. And
So good.
there's a Bible verse, and I don't want to mess it up, but it says all work is fruitful. All work you put in is going to grow you. And so just like, a missile, put in that work, and as you're getting results, just hone that missile. Okay, I need to put in a little bit more work here, a little bit more work here. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, it's worth it.
Fire.
I love that.
Love
I
it.
love doing this with y'all, man. Listen,
Fire.
if you haven't had your life rocked by one of these things, you got to listen again. And as you guys listen to it, always, we want you guys to tap in. We want you guys to write a comment below. What stood out to you? What are you going to do? Maybe some wisdom that you have on this topic that we're sharing, and to know that it's worth it at the end of your journey. Your life is worth it. You're worth it. Your future's worth it. And so, man, once again, we the bros.
Sir.
It's another episode of the Bros to Men podcast.
In the books.
We want to thank you for tuning in. Next time, right?
Yep.
Next
See you next time.
Peace.